My name is Teresa. Standing in the grand ballroom, hushed by my words, I feel a strange calm wash over me. The eyes of 300 guests are fixed on me, a woman with a folder in her hand, confronting her brother on stage. My mother's voice still echoes in the air, "What money? We never received a single dollar from you." I look at my brother, Ethan, his face a mask of forced composure. He's always been the golden child, the one everyone in the family bragged about. I've spent my life in his shadow, but tonight, the truth will shine through. I take a deep breath and begin to speak. The Anderson Foundation, which Ethan claims to support young entrepreneurs, doesn't exist as a registered charity. I have statements from 2 investors here who were promised returns and accounting reports they never got. And these wire transfer records show that funds meant for venue renovation were used for personal expenses, covering up a business that's been insolvent for at least 14 months. As I set the folder on the table, the room erupts in a low murmur. Chairs scrape, and people turn to each other, their faces filled with shock and disbelief. Ethan steps down from the stage and approaches me, his voice low and urgent. "You don't understand the full picture. This money was used for business purposes, and I plan to pay it back. This isn't the time or place." I look him straight in the eye. The time is now, and the place is wherever the people you owe answers to are. You sold $800 tickets to a non-existent charity after taking over $62,000 from me over 4 years, which our mother claims she never received. It's a public matter now. Ethan turns to our parents, trying to spin an elaborate tale about cash flow timing, investment cycles, and a secret restructuring plan. But my father, who's been a quiet man for most of his life, holds up a hand and says, "Stop." He then looks at me, not with the comparison I'm so used to, but with a newfound respect. "Are these documents complete and verifiable?" he asks quietly. I nod. "Yes, and I sent copies to my attorney this morning with instructions to proceed if I don't contact them by midnight." He nods once more and says, "You've been taking care of things I didn't even know needed taking care of." It's not a full apology, but it means the world to me. Let me rewind to the beginning. I grew up in a well-to-do family in the suburbs. My parents, Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, were successful in their own right. My father was a respected banker, and my mother was a socialite. Ethan, my older brother by 4 years, was the apple of their eye. He was tall, athletic, and had a charisma that could light up a room. At every family gathering, every dinner, every casual chat with relatives, the conversation would inevitably turn to Ethan. His achievements in school, his awards, and his bright future were always on everyone's lips. I would sit there quietly, watching my mother's face light up when she talked about him, and the contrast when she looked at me was palpable. I remember when I was 15, I worked for weeks on a science project. I put my heart and soul into it, staying up late at night to perfect every detail. When I brought home a grade, my father barely looked up from his newspaper. "Ethan got an A+ on his last project," he said, as if my hard work meant nothing. I didn't cry. I had learned early on that crying only made me seem weaker. Instead, I focused on building my own path. In my mid-20s, I started a small financial consulting firm with 2 close friends. We worked out of a tiny rented office, taking on clients that bigger firms didn't want. Small businesses on the verge of bankruptcy, family-run stores struggling to make ends meet. I was good at what I did, not in a flashy way, but in a way that the numbers spoke for themselves. Clients would come back, and they would refer their friends. Meanwhile, Ethan was making a name for himself in the hospitality industry. In his early 30s, he launched a luxury hotel chain across the state. His social media was filled with glamorous openings, celebrity endorsements, and features in high-end magazines. My parents attended every grand opening, beaming with pride. My mother had a scrapbook filled with articles about him, which she would proudly show to anyone who visited our house. One day, I was having lunch with a business acquaintance, Lily, who owned a linen supply company for hotels. She casually mentioned that Ethan's hotels were behind on their invoices, far behind. At first, I didn't think much of it. Cash flow problems were common in the hospitality business. But then, another contact said the same thing, and then a third. My analytical mind went into overdrive. I started digging deeper, looking at public filings and talking to industry insiders tired of waiting for their payments. What I found made my blood boil. Ethan had been using the facade of success to secure loans against properties he didn't fully own. His investors thought they were part of a profitable venture, but they had never received proper financial statements. His books were a lie, a performance to keep up appearances. One afternoon, I came home to find my mother on the phone, speaking in a hushed tone. When she hung up, she looked at me and said, "I just wish you were more like Ethan. He's building an empire, while you're just dealing with small-time problems." I asked her what she meant by meaningful. She said Ethan had vision, that he was leaving a legacy, and I was just treading water. She didn't mean to be hurtful, but it cut deep. I didn't tell her what I knew. I kept it to myself, just like I had kept all my feelings hidden in this house my whole life. Then, Ethan announced his annual charity gala, the Anderson Foundation Gala. It was to be held at his most luxurious hotel, a former mansion in the heart of the city. The tickets were priced at $800 each, and donors were invited to contribute to a fund for young, underprivileged entrepreneurs. My parents were over the moon. My mother bought a designer dress, and my father had his finest suit tailored. They were seated at the head table, glowing with pride. I wasn't invited, but I bought a ticket under my company name. I sat at the back, a folder filled with evidence in my bag. As I watched Ethan take the stage, the applause thundering, I saw my mother pressing her hand to her chest, on the verge of tears. He spoke about generosity, community, and the responsibility of the successful to help others. It was a beautiful speech, a complete farce. When the host opened the floor for guest remarks, I stood up. Ethan saw me, and his expression changed. The confidence in his eyes faded, replaced by a look of unease. My mother chuckled and said to the woman beside her, "That's his sister. She'll never be as successful as him." I stood straight and said, "Then tell him to pay all the bills. I'm not sending money anymore. The rest, as they say, is history." After that night, Ethan left the gala early, followed by the two investors. The fundraising was suspended. People left in small groups, whispering among themselves. My mother found me as the room was emptying. She looked at me for a long time, as if seeing me for the first time. "Why did you keep sending money when you were never recognized?" she asked. I told her the truth. "Because they're my parents, and I believed you needed it. I didn't do it for recognition, I did it because it was the right thing to do." She took my hand and said she was sorry. It wasn't a perfect apology, but it was more than I had ever expected. In the months that followed, Ethan faced a civil lawsuit from 3 investors. His hotel funds were frozen, and the properties went through restructuring. The illusion was shattered, but what was left was at least honest. My parents are older now, and they need real support. I provide it directly, with complete transparency. I'm not the child my parents used to brag about, and I never will be in that flashy, attention-grabbing way. But I'm the one who brought the truth to light when the family needed it most. I've come to realize that there's a unique strength in being the one that no one expects. They never see you coming because they never really look. And that, in the end, is my advantage.